Sometimes life gives you huge lessons in tough time, but remember to not lose hope, because if you're having a bad present, there is always something good in future. The above philosophy has been expressed extremely vividly and attractively by author POV in the short story, Her Unanswered Love. Read through Michelle's voice. We invite you to listen together. She let out a small squeal as she was pulled in a warm embrace. Her breathing got stopped for a second at a sudden action. But then, inhaling the same scent, she let out a sigh of relief. "You scared me," she whispered softly as the man didn't respond. Instead, he buried his face in her crook. "I made dinner. Go fresh up," she said as she tried to remove his hands, but instead gasped out, feeling herself in air. The man picked her up as a bridal style, and without sparing her a single glance, he made his way towards the room. Anastasia knew what he was planning to do. "Darian, first eat something, and put me down, I have work." Instead of listening to her, he threw her on the bed, making her surprised as he was rough than usual times. He still kept his mouth shut and started unbuttoning his shirt as she stared at him, gulping down. His demoniac was different, he was looking different. "Come here," his deep raspy voice ordered her as she was frozen in her place. He removed his shirt and threw it across the room. Raising his eyebrow at her, he indirectly gave her a warning, which she worked on instantly. Jumping off the bed, she stood in front of him. Placing his hand on her shoulder, he slowly removed the string of her dress as she closed her eyes. "Do you love me?" It wasn't a question, it was a confirmation. An affirmation of her love for him. She nodded, still keeping her eyes closed. His lips curved into a satisfied smirk as he removed her dress from her shoulders. He unzipped her dress in a sensual way as her breath got heavier at his touch. He brushed his fingers on her bare back, reaching to the hooks of her bra as he unclasped them. As soon as her dress along with bra fell on the floor, he grabbed her waist and pressed her against his chest. Her hands gripped his bare shoulders as he was teasing her on purpose. His eyes darkened, witnessing her lower lip between her teeth as she bit it because of sensation. Something flashed in his mind as the memories of the morning started roaming in his mind. His softness fades away and replaced with roughness. He harshly squeezed her jaw, turning her lips into a pout, and slammed his lips on hers, taking her in a bruising kiss. Indeed, kiss was bruising and somehow too hard for her, but again his touch made her weak. His few seconds of softness once again turned her into his submissive. He pulled her up with her waist, and instead of bed, he harshly removed the stuff on the dressing table, settling her on it. His lips moved viciously as he claimed her wholly as his. He can't help but feel proud, as he was the only one who can control her like this. Without him doing anything, he knew he had an undeniable effect on her. Detaching his lips from hers, he went to her neck, harshly biting and sucking on it. She let out a loud moan as his sucking was real hard. Her fingers dug deep inside his flesh as he was literally chewing her skin. "Darian," she gasped out, while he let out a groan of satisfaction. Instantly moving to her chest, he pulled her trousers down and removed his pants as well. Without wasting a second, he entered her with a hard thrust, earning a scream from her. He was rough. Too rough. She didn't know what was the reason, but she knew he was angry, and this was his way to take his stress. Anger and frustration out. "Ugh, fuck Anastasia," he growled as her walls clenched him hard. He grabbed her waist and pulled her up, pressing her back on the mirror as he started to slam himself with a deep, hard thrust. Anastasia's head fell on his shoulder when he pulled her away from the table and slammed her on the bed, not stopping his rough thrusting for even a second. Anastasia had always given him an undeniable pleasure. He couldn't help but to feel satisfied because he was the only man who had touched her. And still touching her. He knew she will never leave him, as her love for him was stronger than he thought. For the past 3 years of marriage, she had shown him how much he meant to her. And that's what gave him an unasked pleasure of being only one for her. After the last deep thrust, his body fell on her sweaty one as they both were breathing crazily. His head was buried in her neck, breathing in her intoxicating scent. Pulling away from her, he went to the bathroom without sparing her last glance. Anastasia calmed herself as a lone tear escaped her eye, reaching to her cheekbone, because even after feeling his warmth, his presence, his body against her, in the end, she felt only emptiness. Wiping the tear away, she stood up with her wobbly legs and wore the clothes. She hissed as she limped towards guest room's bathroom. He was too rough today as compared to other days. But again, shaking her head, she foolishly accepted that it's fine to erase his tension. And if this can ease him, then no problem. Taking a shower, she changed her clothes and came back to the room, finding her husband already laying on bed with his eyes closed. She turned the lights off and gently dragged herself between his arms and chest like a small kitten. She made him wrap his arm around her and laid her head on his chest, wrapping her arm around his hard torso. "I love you. Good night," she whispered in his ears before dozing off. For Anastasia, her husband was asleep, but only if she knew he was wide awake, and this wasn't the first day he let her cuddle him. Every night he let her. He never stopped her. Not because for her, but for himself. He felt a weird feeling of being loved. He felt that someone was giving him everything without demanding anything in return. Love. Peace. Happiness unconditionally. When he felt her breathing peacefully as she fell asleep, he tightens his hold on her, letting her snuggle in him more. Kissing her head, he let his eyes smiled at her, even though his lips were only remain in a thin line. "Good night, Anna." Unfolding her eyes, she met with an empty bed, making her sigh. Maybe it was absurd for her to hope for too much. But it was every woman's dream after a beautiful night to have a bright morning waking up in her loved one's arms. She gave him her everything. Her time. Her peace. Her whole being. She let him rule over her without demanding anything in return, but now she started to feel empty. She wanted to be loved. For once she wanted to hear those words which he accepts hearing from her. Is it so hard to love her? To forget his past and move on with his present. But he just keeps holding on the things that happened to him. Even after she gave him everything, even herself to him, he still isn't ready, even after 3 years of her unconditional love. She cleaned the room, settling the dressing table accurately. After taking a shower, she remembered she had to visit her friend's house today. Anastasia's friend is a doctor, and for the past week, she was feeling weirdly nauseous. Filling her husband's needs had become her routine. He almost every night sleeps with her, and she's being his submissive, gave in and let him have her. Reaching to her friend's house, she smiled at her. Anastasia hugged her friend. Emily pulled her inside, forcing her to sit on the sofa so she could bring drinks for them. "Hey, Anna." Emily's husband came in the living room with a smile, greeting Anastasia. "Hey, Andrew, how are you? How are you handling that lioness?" He made a warning look as Emily entered the living room with suspicious eyes, while Anastasia giggled a little. "Anna, how many times I have to tell you no talking back about my princess?" he said, kissing her head as Anastasia raised her hands in defeat, even though he himself used to complain behind Emily's back. Emily smacked his head, pulling away from his embrace and placing the tray of drinks on the table. "You shouldn't be the one saying this, Sherlock." Andrew sighed before kissing her last time and went out as he had to reach his office. Anastasia felt so envious and happy for her friend. Emily and Andrew's marriage was also an arranged one, but with time they both fell for each other. Andrew did have a girlfriend, but she left him when her parents chose someone else for her, and she didn't even fight for their relationship. Andrew was heartbroken, but after marrying Emily, he slowly started to accept her, and finally, she won him after a year. Emily is a doctor. They were not ready for the baby yet, as their marriage happened 2 years ago, while Anastasia's case was different. No one was against Darian and Anastasia having a child, but for the last 3 years, it never happened. God didn't grace them with a child yet. Anastasia always wished to be just like Emily. Happy with her husband. Who wouldn't? It's every woman's wish that her husband expresses how much she means to him. How much he loves her, but Darian never did, not even for once talked softly with her. Anastasia explained her condition to Emily, and only one thing came in her mind. She instantly brought Anastasia to her hospital. After properly checking and confirming, she smiled happily at Anastasia at first, but when the last test came, her smile dropped down and concern filled her veins. Anna, you're pregnant. Anastasia was frozen for some time, but then smiled brightly, caressing her tummy and tearing up in happiness. But her head snapped towards Emily, whose eyes were reflecting sadness. She placed a file in front of Anastasia. Open it. Anastasia did what Emily said, and reading the file, her smile dropped down as well. Smiling sadly at Emily. Is it true? Emily nodded at her, and being a professional doctor, she explained to her everything, even though she knew how much it will hurt her friend. I am sorry, Anna. But you have to make a decision wisely. Talk to Darian. His mother and yours too. But trust me, I think the B option is better. Anastasia shook her head, placing her hand on her stomach. I can't do this, Anna. You're like a sister to me. Please make the decision wisely. Please don't do something which you couldn't be able to change in the end. Anastasia nodded before standing up and smiling at Emily. Keep these files with you. I will visit you after 2 days and will tell you my decision. Emily nodded and hugged her friend again, mumbling to make the right decision. Anastasia went back home feeling numb. Anna, baby. She got startled hearing a high-pitched voice of a woman. Darian's mom hugged Anastasia while she returned the hug, smiling happily. They had lunch together. Darian joined them on lunch and then again went back to work. I know, Anna, you want to say something. Don't ever hesitate. I am like your mother. Anastasia smiled at her before grabbing her hands. Mom. I am pregnant. Mother nodded, smiling normally, but then realizing what she said, she squealed out and pulled Anastasia in a tight hug, taking her for a surprise. Oh, my baby, I am so happy. Finally, I am gonna be a grandmother. I waited for this for so long. Thank you so much, Anna. You made me so happy. Anastasia went numb watching her being so happy. She didn't know what to do anymore. I didn't tell Darian yet. What? You should have told him first, Anna. He's a father. He deserves to know, and you know right how much he loves kids. Anastasia nodded in agreement, as it wasn't a lie. Darian indeed loved kids a lot. He never used protection, neither let her use pills. He only once told her that they are married and having kids isn't something bad thing. Anastasia knew he wanted to make a family. But will he be able to handle the real thing she wanted to tell him? She decided to talk to this matter with Darian first and then with her and his mother. Darian, I wanted to talk to you, she said softly, watching her husband removing the watch. He just came back from his company. He hummed, motioning her to continue. Why are you so hesitant? Just say it, he said coldly, making her gulp down. Taking a deep breath. I am pregnant, she mumbled, but was enough for Darian to hear. He again hummed. That's it. I thug, wait, what? He was frozen, staring at her with stunned expressions. She gulped when his eyes traveled to her stomach. Anastasia left stunned when a wide smile appeared on his face for the first time in these 3 years. He never smiled in this brightly before, even with his mother and relatives, he never did. She flinched back a little when he kneeled down, caressing her stomach, making her more shocked. She gulped down when he kissed her clothed stomach, smiling so brightly. Come, fast, baby. I can't wait to hold you in my arms. My baby, he whispered, caressing and staring at her stomach with loving eyes. That time Anastasia didn't know what to do anymore. She was lost, confused and clueless. Seeing him like this made me realize many things. I was awestruck and dumbfounded at the same time. How can this be the same man who treated me with only coldness can be this gentle and loving? His eyes were shining in love and softness. He was indeed in love with our child. He slowly stood up, and as soon as his eyes met mine, his smile faded away and replaced with an emotionless cold look. He cleared his throat and suddenly pulled me towards bed, making me sat on it. From now on you will do no chores of the house. No cooking and roaming here and there. I will appoint some maids for you, he commanded in a cold tone while I stared at him blankly. No need for this, Darian. It's just a month pregnancy. I can war. Before I could continue my words, he interrupted me with his stern tone. No means no, Anastasia. You wouldn't touch any work. I don't want any risk in the matter of my child, he said, as this child is only his, which made me feel more bad and frustrated. Our Darian. This child is ours, not yours. I emphasized the words, and standing up from the bed, I made my way towards the bathroom. No need to worry. This child is mine as well. I am her/him's mother. And you don't have to tell me what to do. I was enraged this time, so I didn't let him overpower me. But before I could enter the bathroom, I was harshly pulled back against a hard chest, making me gasp a little. Looking up, I met with Darian's burning gaze. Look who was talking about to not take a risk. If he will grab me like this, does he really expect nothing will happen? I could have fallen and hurt myself, but yeah, I forgot that this almighty man becomes a beast in anger. Do not speak to me like this, Anastasia Black. You don't want to test my patience, do you? He seethed by attaching his surname with mine, clearly warning me with his hard tone. And it did work. His anger always makes me his submissive, but today I was feeling different. I didn't want to even see his face. I don't know what was the reason for my anger, but I knew one thing. I can't do this anymore. Today he broke the last string of my hope. Tears blurred my eyes as I stared in his eyes without showing a single ounce of fear. Instead, I was hurt. He hurt my soul. Some emotions flashed in his eyes when he noticed my tears. Leaving my arm, he took a step back, but without saying any further word, he stormed out of the room, slamming the door shut. It's not like this was our first argument. We used to have many arguments. And some arguments turned into angry sex when he used to wreck me hard. It was his way of punishment. He used to do rounds after rounds till I myself begged him to stop. When he got satisfied with my punishment, he did what he always does, leaving me alone and waiting for me to take a shower in the guest room. Entering the bathroom, I let the tears embrace my cheeks as I stared in the mirror. For the last 3 years, I never heard his soft voice, his caring attitude. Not even one soft glance from him, but today, the way he smiled, showed his soft and caring attitude towards our child, which wasn't even born yet, made me realize many things. He loves this child more than anything. The way he showered his love on an unborn child made it easier for me to accept the painful reality from which I was running away. I was no one to him except a distraction from his tension, frustrations, and a substitute for his first love. Placing my hand on my stomach, I smiled as tears of joy started to stream down my eyes. Mommy loves you, baby. Never thought that you can bring so much happiness for your father in just a few seconds. You're the best thing that's going to happen to us. Just remember, Mama loves you. I said, everything wiping my tears and placing a smile on my face, finally deciding what I have to do. I know, my love. My heart isn't enough to erase your scars, Darian. But remember, this foolish girl, whatever she's going to do, is for you. Only for you. Because she loves you way too much. Making my mind, I knew what I have to do next. I silently changed my clothes and sat down on the bed. He was there once again, sleeping peacefully. I rested my back on the bed's headboard and got busy in my thoughts. Today was the first day when I didn't force his arms around me, when I didn't beg his sleeping form to cuddle me. I silently stayed in the place, busy in thinking about what next I have to do. Without reasoning, those same words left from my lips. I love you, Darian. Without realizing anything, I fell asleep in the same sitting position. Darian POV. I sighed heavily, staring at her sleeping figure. How can she sleep like this and that be when she's pregnant? She should be careful. I gently lifted her body and laid her down properly, covering her with duvet. I was surprised when she didn't hug me today. I don't know what happened to her or happening. I felt 1,000 punches on my chest witnessing her teary eyes. I had seen her tearing up only when I first had sex with her, as she was a virgin. I didn't really care that time, and without even thinking about that possibility, I slammed myself too hard. I felt guilt rushing, and I tried to be as much gentle I can be. That was the only night when I treated her with softness and gentle attitude. But today again, those precious tears made me drown in regret. But it wasn't anything new. We had many fights. Anna was always like a girl who can't resist defending herself. And we sometimes even had more rough fights than this. But the question was why she started to cry then. I know her, she isn't a crybaby. She loves me, and for me it's enough for us. Now we are becoming a family. Our child is coming, and we will be a complete family. Then what's wrong with her? She always knew about my cold self. I wasn't always like that. But sometimes things and past scars turned you into a completely different person. My heart doesn't feel anything anymore. I told her from the first second we got engaged that don't expect anything from me, which she obediently accepted. For the past 3 years, she never complained about my unloving attitude. Yes, we did had fights when sometimes I came home late. When sometimes I was drunk. All of our arguments were always related to my attitude and faults. But she never even for once forced her love on me. She loves to express her love by whispering I love you every time she wants. She never forced any kind of physical contact on me if I don't want. That's what I like about her. She's understanding and a perfect ideal woman anyone can die for. But I had noticed for past 2 days that she's being a little distant to me. She looks more in thoughts and doesn't like to talk to me much anymore. Sighing heavily, I laid beside her and stared at her sleeping face, which was only inches away from mine. Extending my hand, I removed a strand of her face, giving her beauty the longest stare. I hope you wouldn't leave me. I couldn't be able to handle that. Anna. Anna, please think about it again. Talk with Darian. Anastasia smiled at her, shaking her head. No, Emily. I have made my mind. And don't worry about Darian, he wouldn't oppose me. I am sure he will be happy after having this precious gem. She said, caressing her tummy as Emily sighed in sadness and handed her papers. Taking a deep breath, Anastasia signed the papers. Don't tell anyone about this. No one means no one, not even Andrew. Promise me. Heaving out a heavy sigh, Emily nodded, as she was helpless. Even if she tries, she knew she has no say in this matter. It's her own decision, and even after Emily's so much pursuing, she's still taking this step, and Emily can't say anything in their personal matters except to advise like a professional doctor. Emily knew Anastasia's love for Darian was indescribable. Even after all the cold treatment and unloved attitude he had given her, she still loves him more than anything. Darian Black had a childhood fiancée. He was in love with her even when he was just a child. He always thought of her as his wife and loved her more than anything. But his heart and belief in love broke down when his fiancée broke the engagement and told him that she's in love with someone else. She was a respectful woman, so she thought of breaking this engagement instead of cheating on him. After breaking the engagement, she got married to the love of her life. That was the time Darian became depressed. He couldn't accept the fact that the same girl he loved for the whole of his life left him in a blink. After a year of crying over her, he turned into a cold and emotionless man. He started feeling empty. He drowned himself in work and only work. But his mother had enough of him being lifeless. She met with her friend's daughter only once, which was Anastasia. She loved Anastasia the first time she met her. Anastasia was only 20 when she met her. Mrs. Black never really liked Darian's ex-fiancé, as she never really cared about her son. But after the cancellation of marriage, she asked for Anastasia's hand, and as Anastasia's mother knew about her daughter's crush on Darian, she accepted the proposal. Anastasia always adored Darian. They went to the same school, and she always respected his gentleman attitude. She fell in love with him when he protected her from bullies many times, and even treated her with so much softness. But after school, she never met him again. She was shocked to know that he was going to be her husband. She was happy and delightful that her first love will be her husband. Anastasia never had any boyfriend or lover. She was a simple girl with an ordinary face and attitude. But when Darian told her to not expect much from him, she was confused about what happened to him, that he had changed so much. Darian's mother explained everything about his ex-fiancée to Anastasia. Anastasia indeed felt heartbroken for him, but she started to question of what he really didn't want her. But after talking to her mother, she made her mind to at least try and erase his pain. Maybe one day he might started to adore her the way she adores him. After marriage, they didn't really interact much. They took a full time to be comfortable with each other. She told him from the first day that she loves him, but he only replied with silence. After 6 months of marriage, Darian started to get attracted to her. He took this attraction as lust and desire. He accepted the fact that he wanted her as he was sexually attracted to her. And finally one night he did what he was waiting to do for so long. After coming late home, Anastasia was angry and worried about him, and they had a small argument which ended up in a hot making-out session. He took her to his bed and only said few words. "I can't control anymore. Let me have you." Anastasia also wanted to touch him, and him having a great effect on her, she gave up and let him have her. She reminded herself that with time things will get better. That maybe one day he would give her answer to her unconditional love. But now her every hope had ended. She doesn't want to keep on reminding herself that with time everything can become better. That with time, he can become better. She has accepted that he doesn't feel anything not towards her. Not to anyone except his child, and if this child can be the reason for his smile and happiness, then she was ready to sacrifice everything. Entering the house, she sighed heavily, watching the line of maids there bowing at her. She knew it was Darian's work. "You all can do your work except cooking. I will make breakfast, lunch and dinner. If I wanted help I will ask you. Now you can get to work." They bowed at her and started to do their work. Anastasia never liked when someone else cooks for her except her mother. She was taught from childhood to do her own work instead of relying on maids and servants. For baby's safety, she decided to let them work on the other things, like dusting, clothes washing and house cleaning. But cooking was the only work she will never let anyone else to even touch. Preparing a dinner. She was about to wait for Darian, but then she realized that she needs to start working on the decision she made. She took her food and ate it peacefully. After eating, she washed the dishes and was about to go to her room, but Darian entered the house with a tired face. Without greeting or saying anything to him, she warmed the food and placed it on the table. "Why are you working? Where are the maids?" Darian said, sitting on the chair as he just got freshened up after changing his clothes. "It's 10 p.m. Their duty ends at 8 p.m. After serving the food, she started to walk away, taking Darian in surprise. "Where are you going? Aren't you gonna eat?" His cold voice, without a single ounce of care, hit her ears, halting her steps. "I already ate it. I am going to sleep. Good night," she mumbled before walking to the room, leaving him all alone. Darian frowned at her sudden cold behavior. She never missed eating with him before. Sometimes if he comes late, she would only wait for him without eating anything. Darian convinced himself that she's might doing it for the baby. But without him realizing, he didn't enjoy his food. He felt his appetite fading away. He was used to feeling her presence beside him. He was used to hearing her talking during dinner. But right now he felt empty. After eating the non-appetizing food, he went to his room. After freshening up, he laid on the bed just the way he used to, closing his eyes and pretending to sleep. Anastasia entered the room and laid under the heavy duvet. She stared at his face for a few minutes before sighing out. She turned to the other side, facing him with her back, and didn't let her emotions to rule her. Today was the second time she didn't hug him or force him to hug her. After proper minutes, he opened his eyes and stared at her back, dumbfounded. This was the second night she didn't hug him. Darian started to feel empty and weird feeling of being ignored by her. But what left him more shocked was the words she never forgot to tell him before sleeping. She didn't say "I love you" to me. Staring at the couple in front of him, he was sitting there blankly. There was something different in his mind this time. He was thinking different. He was confused about why he wasn't jealous or angry seeing them being so lovey-dovey in front of him. Instead, he felt nothing for them except seeing the couple. He weirdly missed his own wife. He felt an urge to kiss her the way that man in front of him kissed his wife. He wanted to hold his wife and wanted to see her beautiful smile whenever she expressed her love to him. Clearing his throat, Andrew stared at his friend with raised eyebrows. "What happened, dude? You look too much in thoughts." Darian looked at him, shaking his head and pointing at the couple who was busy in their conversation. Andrew's face changed into a stern one as he sighed, shaking his head. "Seriously, Darian? Even after having a gem like Anastasia, you're still not over Ava?" he exclaimed in a disappointed tone when he looked at Darian's ex-fiancée with her husband. "That's what I am saying. I seriously felt nothing when they were kissing, hugging and smiling at each other. Rather, I was. You were what?" Darian looked at him, letting out a sigh as he was extremely frustrated of what Anastasia was doing to him for past days. And now he was feeling weird emotion rising in his heart. "I miss her. Anastasia, I miss her so much." Andrew's lips curved into a wide smile as he looked at his friend in gratefulness. He knew Darian would never lie about these kinds of things. "Then go ahead and meet her. She's your wife, dude. If you miss her, then go and see her." Darian sighed, shaking his head. "That's the problem. I am upset not because after 2 years Ava is here. I am upset because for past month Anastasia is ignoring me. She's not even doing the same things she used to do. I hate the way she's behaving right now. That makes me frustrated." Andrew chuckled at him. "She just ignored you and become distant from you for just a month, and this is your condition. Have you thought about her? You're being this cold-hearted bastard to her for past 3 years. Do you think she wouldn't get tired trying to win you? Your love," he said, making Darian blink multiple times, but then he shook his head, clearing his mind. "No, Anastasia already knew that I don't believe in love anymore, and that's just your own made illusion, nothing else. It's not that you don't believe in love. The truth is you don't want to believe that Anastasia has already crawled her way to your heart, and she had done it a long time ago, but you're just too blind to accept it." Andrew interrupted him and stated his thoughts with full care while Darian scoffed, thinking that how can he be in love again? No, he can't. Call him a coward, but his heart has hid itself because of fear. Fear of losing the one he loved so much. He decided to not argue and remain quiet, but his silent time got interrupted when someone sat down in front of him. Heaving his head up, his eyes met with the same green orbs which he used to adore so much, but now his mind was thinking about those dazzling hazel eyes which apparently belongs to his wife. "How are you, Darian? It's been a long time," Ava said with a small smile while Darian only looked her blankly without showing a single ounce of any emotion. "Can I help you with something?" he asked with a cold tone while she sighed heavily at his harsh treatment. Andrew was glaring at Ava. "Where is your husband, Ava? I didn't know he's going to be our next project partner." Ava smiled at Andrew when he asked her. "He got a call. Yes, I wasn't also aware of it, she said with sincerity. But I knew it was your husband, Darian said emotionlessly, making Ava narrowed her eyes at him. Don't tell me, Darian, that you're trying to separate me and David. Please, Darian, forget me, I love David and... Her words cut down with a sarcastic cold chuckle as Darian stared at her in disbelief. Why in the hell you ever thought that I will do a business deal and that be so important for you? Ava shifted uncomfortably when she realized he didn't do it for her. Listen to me clearly, Miss Ava. Whatever was between us has already ended. I have my wife and I am highly satisfied plus happy with her. And you have your own life, so we are better off from each other. I don't love you anymore, Ava. So better get rid of that thought of me making efforts of having you back. Because years back we already had decided that once our engagement was ended, you and I have nothing to do with each other, and that's better if you also consider me as no one, because for me you're just a stranger. He said whatever was in his mind. And his every word was the truth. He has no feelings for Ava anymore. But what confusing him was the feeling he was having from the day Anastasia started to ignore him. Ava left stunned at his cold and calm words. He said everything with so much calmness, but he clearly told her, and that for him only his wife is everything. But she also felt relieved and happy for him because she always wanted him to move on. Darian stood up and fixed his coat before shaking a hand with Ava's husband after signing a project contract with them. Ava also had a huge amount of shares in her husband's company, so she was also present in the meeting and her sign was needed. I will take my leave now, Mr. and Mrs. Matthews. After bidding his goodbye, he walked towards his car and instantly drove to his house, as it was already 9 p.m. and tonight he wanted to arrive home earlier. Parking his car, he walked inside the house, loosening his tie and removing his coat along with unbuttoning his sleeves, rolling them up. He threw the coat on the sofa and looked around, and there the girl he missed like crazy was standing there near the pool. She was standing near the pool staring at the moon with a small smile while crossing her arms. He took fast steps towards her. Anastasia let out a surprised yelp when he hugged her tightly, locking her body against his. Her back was pressed against his chest. You scared me. Are you hungry? She asked him in a soft tone, trying to remove his hands from her body, but he only tightened his grip and buried his face in her crook. His lips finally landed on her slightly revealed shoulder, earning a small gasp from her. His lips started to move on aggressively as he placed fast but small pecks all over her shoulder and neck. He tried to slide the string of her dress from her shoulder to get proper access to her beautiful skin. Darian was too much busy to see her uncomfortable reaction. She forcefully removed his hands and lightly pushed him away, taking him for a surprise as he wasn't expecting it. It was something new for him, she never did this before. I am tired, Darian. Dinner is ready. Go fresh up, I will arrange the table, she said, and instantly fled away from the place, leaving him all stunned and confused. He brushed his fingers in his hair, letting out a frustrated sigh. What's happening with you, Anna? You're not even letting me to touch you anymore, he whispered to himself, watching her figure working in the kitchen. After freshening up, he ate dinner and it was the same. She said she already had eaten up and he had his dinner alone, making him miss her even more. Entering his room, he went to the bathroom, but after coming back his eyes hardened and he felt anger rushing through his veins. There she was again, laying on the bed with her back facing him, and she was doing this thing for the past month. It has been a month when he heard her tell him I love you before sleeping. But he had enough. Being an aggressive man he was. He harshly slammed the towel on the couch, which was in his hand, and went towards her body. Grabbing her arm, he roughly pinned her back on the bed and hovered above her, making her eyes widened in shock. But before she could say anything, he interrupted her. Enough. I had enough of this. I can't take this anymore. What are you doing, Darian? Get off me, she said, trying to push his chest, but instead he pinned her wrists on the bed and stared in her eyes with his flaming ones. I am not letting you off. Today you have to tell me the reason for your ignorance. I am tired of seeing you this distant from me. Tell me, what have I done to make you ignore me like this? He questioned her, leaning to her face while she only struggled to get away from him. She knew his touch and closeness makes her weak, and she wasn't ready to back away from the decision she made. Please, Darian. If you can't find the answers from my unsaid words, then please don't expect me to explain to you. I am tired, please let me rest. She said, trying to free her hands, but instead he squeezed her wrists, making her hiss in pain. And what about me? I am also tired to see you ignoring me for no reason. I am tired of waiting that you might not, well, that's why you need time, but now what, it's already been a month and you're still like this. She chuckled at him, taking him for a surprise. A month. Only a month I behaved distant from you, and you're complaining this much, also using force on me. Then shouldn't I be complaining as well about you to be distant from me for the past 3 years? But did I? No, right. Then why do you have to question me like this? I can do whatever I want now, leave me. She seethed at him, making him angrier. Without doing anything, he smashed his lips on hers, kissing her roughly. She tried to move her head away, but instead pressed his lips harder, forcing her head to stay on the spot. She tried to stop him, she tried to break the kiss, but all went in vain, and at last her love and emotions for him won. She gently closed her eyes and stopped struggling, but still didn't kiss him back. He felt her not moving, so he left her wrists and placed his palm on her cheek, turning the ferocious kiss into a luscious one. His kiss turned soft and full of care. He missed her kissing and feeling against his body so much that he wanted to feel her every inch, slowly and gently. He was taking his full time, tasting her cherry-like lips. Feeling his gentle touch, she kissed him back and let him enter his tongue. She poured her love in the kiss while he filled his longing through the kiss. Slowly detaching his lips from her, she steadily unfolded her teary orbs as a single tear rolled down her cheekbone, making him to wipe it away. Staring in the eyes of each other for some proper minutes, he again started to lean down to claim her lips, but this time he left stunned when she softly moved her face away, making his lips brush her cheek. What color I like? What is my hobby? What's the thing that makes me happy? What's my wish? What's my favorite food? What's my favorite place that I want to visit? What is that I want the most? She questioned him, but he had no idea what to do. He was frozen as his lips were still touching her cheek, while another tear escaped her eyes as she continued her words. Your favorite color is gray. You love bike racing. Seeing your mother happy makes you happy. Your favorite food, cheese pasta. The place you want to visit, Paris. You never mentioned what your true wish is. The thing you want the most is to make your father's company successful. She answered her own questions, but instead telling her about herself, she told him about him, clearly emphasizing the fact that she knows everything about him, leaving him stunned and shocked. Why, Darian? Why? When I know everything about you, then why don't you know a thing about me? Why? You don't even know the reason for my tears. Of my distancing myself from you. Am I the only responsible one in this marriage? Am I the only one who needs to complete you, but to only left herself empty? She completed her words while the whole room went silent. There was only the sound of their breathing. She let out a small throaty sob which filled his ears. She knows so much about him, but he can't even read her eyes. Today she showed him how much she loves him and always loved him, but how blind he is that he can't even see her pain behind those smiley orbs. Pulling away, he stared in her eyes, which were looking at him with nothing. There was no love or hate in them. Instead, there was only one emotion: hopeless. I am tired, Darian. I am tired of running behind you. I am tired of making you witness my love. I am tired, I am really tired, please let's just stay away from each other. I wouldn't disturb you. She said with a motionless tone, clutching his heart painfully. He had no idea, but today the things she said made him extremely regretful. He never thought he was hurting her this bad. He tried to touch her cheeks to wipe the tears away, but she moved her head away. Please leave me. I want to rest. Please, she whispered with her cracked voice. Gulping down his uncomfortable feelings, he pulled away from her and went out of the room. She curled up in a ball hearing him going out of the room. Tear after tear graced her cheeks, making her cry her heart out. She promised herself that this night will be the last one she cried for that heartless man. She wouldn't let him hurt her more. She was tired of trying. Her strength has given up. What she decided to do wasn't for Darian, it was her own happiness. And she was persistent to her decision. After some time she dozed off while Darian entered the room after relaxing his mind a little. He sat down on the couch staring at her sleeping figure while she was taking slow breaths. He was drowned in the ocean of regret. How he never thought that he was hurting her this much. Then he took his behavior and his every act in check. He never for once showed his caring side to her. How can he be this cruel towards an innocent girl who never did anything wrong except to love him? But his mind still refused to take his guilt as love. He still refused to accept the uncomfortable feeling in his heart. The pain of hurting her. Because he loves her, no, he refused to accept that he already had fallen for her. Shaking his head, he accepted the fact that he can't return her feelings, so it's better to stay away from each other. If distancing from each other ease her pain, then it's fine. He's ready to endure her ignorance because he knows one thing: he can't love her. He can't love her. Right? 4 months. It's been 4 months when I last talked to Anna. When I last kiss her. Hug her. Touch her. I did what she wanted me to do. I stopped pursuing her. I stopped trying to gain her attention. I stopped meddling in her matters and let her do as she wishes, but then why? Why is it so hard to stand her behavior? Why is it so hard to keep my cold attitude on the spot? Why am I starting to feel empty, hurt and lonely? These things started to make me realize her pain. All these years she fulfilled my every need. She gave me everything, and what I did. Nothing. I gave her nothing except emptiness. I am so cruel. I was so busy thinking about my pain. I was so selfish for expecting only for her love and not giving a one-bit damn about her emotions. If I wanted to be loved, then why shouldn't she want to? She's also a human like me, and I was treating her like a robot. I am so damn selfish. What should I do? I can't help it. My heart is not letting me love her. I whispered to myself, staring at the view from the vast window of my office. Her ignorance in not communicating with me was another thing, but the most heart-piercing thing was the way she distanced herself from me. She even changed her room. She sleeps in a guest room now. She made breakfast before I woke up and left me alone. She sent the lunch to my office, clearly telling me to not come home. I had to eat dinner alone as well. My nights went sleepless without seeing her angelic face. Without hearing her full of love voice confessing to me. I felt tired. I can't even have a proper mind peace. I never thought that her ignorance can make me this miserable. I felt like grabbing her and filling my desires. I wanted to pour my longing on her, but again I can't. I promised myself to not disturb her, just like she said. But how much time she wants more. I am missing her like a crazy person. What about her then? Doesn't she miss me? Doesn't she love me anymore? No, she does. She still loves, I know. I can see in her eyes that she still loves me, but then why she's doing this? Why she's playing with me like this? She knew about my hate towards love, then why she's behaving like this? Sighing heavily, I sat down on my chair and stared at the files in front of me blankly. I don't even feel like working anymore. My head was spinning so badly. I wanted to just sleep. Sleep, but in her arms. I was craving to hold her. I wanted to take the time back when she used to cuddle with me. I missed it. I missed her every behavior. Hearing a knock on the door, I opened my eyes and yelled, "Come in." "Hey, dude. Damn, you look beautifully ugly today." I rolled my eyes at his absurd remark. He sat down in front of me. What you want, Andrew? He sighed heavily, staring at me with concerned eyes. Look at you, bro. What have you done to yourself? You look like a person who hasn't slept for God knows how many months. He was right, I was indeed looking messed up. Ruffling my hairs, I shook my head. I don't know. I can't sleep anymore. Her ignorance is piercing me. It's like that she's hiding something from me. I am frustrated. Really frustrated. I said, sighing heavily, rubbing my face using my hands. You're right. I think so too. There is something going on between her and Emily. Emily isn't telling me anything, but they both are hiding something. I looked at him as he continued his words. Emily seems concerned and upset nowadays. Whenever I asked her something, she only replied me with simple words. She can't break the promise she made with Anastasia. That's the problem. For the past 2 months, I noticed her getting paler. Indeed, her weight is gaining as she's pregnant, but her arms and face are becoming skinnier. She's not even looking at me anymore. I can't see her like this. I heard his chuckle, which was clearly full of sarcasm. And you think she likes you seeing so miserable? Your eyes are looking sleepless. There are dark circles under your eyes. Your skin is getting paler as well. You both needs each other. I don't know why you're this stubborn. Just accept the fact that your heart is telling you, and everything can be better. With that, he walked away from me, leaving me stunned and confused. I gulped, taking a glass of water and gulping it down my throat. He was right, I need her. I want her. I am losing myself without her. But I don't love her. Right. I don't. Shaking my thoughts away, I decided to go home today. Earlier my head was spinning badly. I can feel my body getting hotter. Shit, I think I got a fever. Darian entered the house and stopped in the hallway, feeling his eyes getting blurry. He sat down on the sofa and took a few deep breaths to calm himself. Anastasia wasn't at home because she had an appointment with her gynecologist. He made his way towards his room, and without changing his clothes he slammed his body on the bed. And within a few minutes, he fell asleep. Anastasia reached home and made a lunch. One of the maids told her that Darian has came earlier today and he's not going back as he instructed them. Anastasia waited for him to come down, but he didn't. Not able to hold herself, she made her way to his room, which used to be theirs. She walked towards his sleeping figure. Her eyes slightly got widened, seeing him sweating furiously and trembling a little. Touching his forehead and neck. He has a fever. She instantly called the doctor, and to ease his burning body she used cold water with piece of cloth, using it on his forehead and neck to lower his temperature a little, which indeed worked out. After some time doctor came and he instructed her that he lacked sleep, and because of overwork intention, his condition becomes like this. She was already stressed out for him from few weeks. He was getting paler and restless, and she can feel it. She wanted to talk to him and ease his tensions, as her love once wanted to push her to him. But she controlled her emotions. She controlled herself from falling on her knees for him once again. Changing his clothes into sweatpants and an oversized shirt, she laid him down, properly covering his body with a duvet and removing his shoes along with socks. Making him eat medicine while he was half conscious. She stayed beside him because for her this wasn't the time to show ignorance. For humanity, she can at least do this. She carefully sat down on the bed, placing her back on the bed's headboard, placing her hand on her swollen belly. She was 6 months pregnant. After some time, without realizing, she dozed off. Letting out a small groan, Darian opened his eyes. It was 11 at night. He remembered he slept at 5 in the evening. Rubbing his forehead, he felt his fever eased up a lot. Soon his whole body got frozen and heartbeat went crazy when his eyes witnessed her sleeping beside him in a sitting manner. Sitting up on the bed, he scooted a little closer to her, placed his back on the headboard, staring at her with soft eyes. She steadily unfolded her hazel orbs, feeling something moving beside her, and got startled to see her husband's dark eyes staring in hers. He was still staring at her without showing any emotion. You had a fever, so I called the doctor. I don't know how I fell asleep like this," she said. Now looking away from him, she tried to move away from him, but instead, he placed his head on her shoulder, freezing her in the place. "Don't go. Stay here like this," he whispered in his tired and raspy voice while she sat there stiffened in her place. Extending his hand, he placed his hand on her swollen belly, caressing it softly. "How long? For how long, Anastasia, you're going to ignore me? I stayed away from you just like you wanted me to. But my limit is ending now. I can't do this anymore. I can't stay away from you." She was frozen in her place and had no idea of what to do. He said those words with full of softness. She was stunned to witness his new side, which he never showed before. Maybe because of the medicines she gave him made him behave this vulnerable. His actions were making her weak, but she still didn't let her guards down. This man ruled her for many years, and now she's not ready to get played by him again. She let him control her for over 3 years, and now her limit has given up. "You need something to eat. The doctor has instructed to give you something to eat before giving medicine," she said as she once again tried to distance herself from him, but instead, he held her arm, nuzzling his head in the side of her neck. "Don't go. Just let me enjoy this moment. Please." His last words left her more shocked. He was almost begging her. She never thought that almighty Darian Black can ever be this vulnerable. Soon he dozed off, inhaling her scent after so many months. Anastasia didn't stop him, as for her this will be the last night he will hold her like this. Because this wasn't her ignorance. It was their fate. Fate to be separate from each other. "Anna. What name you have decided for the baby? It's now 7 months. And what gender it is?" Darina's mother questioned Anastasia, smiling happily. "I didn't try to find the gender I wanted to know on the day of his or her birth," she said, caressing her belly with a small smile, but soon her smile faded away when Mrs. Black said something. "Anna, my daughter, you look weak and pale. What's happening to you? You should be gaining weight, not losing it. Aren't you eating properly, and where is this stubborn son of mine? He's not here for you. How irresponsible of him," she said as she glared at nothing, clearly mad at her son for not taking good care of his wife. "Relax, Mom. He had work, and also I am perfectly fine, don't worry." Mrs. Black only sighed heavily before frowning when Anastasia said something. "Mom, can you promise me something?" Mrs. Black looked at her for some time before nodding her head. "No matter if I am here or not, but please love your grandson or granddaughter more than anything. Please, Mrs. Black instantly turned towards her in concern. Caressing her hands, "Anna, everything is all right. Right? You're not hiding anything, right?" Anastasia smiled at her widely before shaking her head. "Of course, Mom, everything is perfect, don't worry, I am perfect." Mrs. Black was still hesitant, but at last nodded her head. Anastasia sighed, but soon the cup in her hands fell on the floor. Her face scrunched in pain as she placed her hand on her stomach, feeling a pool of massive pain all over her body. She let out a small scream, following with several screams, instantly scaring Mrs. Black. "Anna, what happened? Oh my God, your water broke." She instantly called the driver and took screaming and moaning in pain Anastasia to hospital. Mrs. Black was trembling in concern because it was only her 7th month and her water already broke. Meanwhile, Darian POV. Looking at the phone blankly, I cut the call. It was from my business partners. Today I had a meeting, but I was too much messed up from my mind that I know I can't handle this meeting. Concentration was far away from me. I wanted to know the way how to convince Anna. How to make her accept me with who I am. I know she's doing this because she's tired of gaining my love, but what should I do? My heart, and I just can't help it. Wish I could pull this heart out, and fell on my knees in front of her. Sighing heavily, I stared blankly at the picture in my hand. It was mine and Anna's wedding picture. I don't know why, but I can't start anything without seeing this picture. It was the best decision of my life. The decision of making this girl as my wife. This picture from the first day was in my office drawer. I never showed to anyone, but I always start my day after seeing this picture. But now I realized that this picture wasn't the reason of my successful business. It was the soft smile and beautiful voice of hers which I every day before coming to the office used to hear and see. And from the day she stopped showing herself on breakfast, even talking to me, I realized how miserable I am without her. That night when I slept on her shoulder was the last time I had a peaceful sleep. But when I woke up, my peace was snatched away seeing an empty bed and no one near me. That day I wanted to feel her in my arms till she wakes up. That day was the first time when I felt not leaving the bed and just stare at her, but she wasn't there. So this is how it feels. Seeing the one you wanted to awake with. If he or she wasn't there besides you, this is how it felt. It's so damn disappointing and painful. And that poor girl was doing this for the past 3 years. She always woke up alone in the bed as I used to shower before her. I never thought it can hurt this bad. My thoughts fade away when Andrew entered the room. Hey Darian. Why didn't you come to the meeting? Our partners were asking for you. I had to lie to them that you're not feeling well. I sighed, shaking my head, but got a heavy sigh from him as well. Andrew, can I ask you how you fell for Emily when you loved your girlfriend so much? He chuckled at my words. Yes, I loved my girlfriend a lot, but after seeing that she was just playing and time passing with me, my love fades away and turned into, you can say, emptiness. Like no hate, no love. I no longer felt anything for her when I married Emily. I gave him a full attention, Emily, and I had a very hard time. Emily fell for me first and confessed, but I was too coward to accept it that I had already fallen for her. But then one day she said that she can't hold me back for so long. She can't keep on forcing me to remain in this loveless marriage. That time something inside me clicked so bad when I thought of her leaving me. I ran towards her room and saw her packing her bags. Without thinking anything, I kissed her and fell on my knees, confessing my true feelings for her. The fear of her leaving me made me realize my love for her. Made me realize that I can't live without her. I am nothing without her. He completed his words, making me question many things. Tell me, Darian, what if Anastasia left you? I mean, the way she's behaving, it seems like she's planning to be separated from you. My head snapped towards him, glaring at him. Never. Anastasia promised me that she will never leave me. I know she will never. And why wouldn't she? I mean, she's human as well. What if she got tired of you and decided to end this loveless relation? I shook my head, standing up and removing my tie. I felt my breathing getting heavy thinking of her leaving me. I can't even imagine my life without her anymore. She has become a part of my breathing. She can't leave me. Stop saying it. I wouldn't let her leave me. She loves me. I heard his chuckle full of sarcasm. Why wouldn't she? Loving a person and keep on compromising are different things. And what you're doing right now. I am sure one day she will leave you. I slammed the tie on the floor, glaring at him, breathing heavily. I felt my veins popping out of my neck. My jaw was clenched tightly. I said she can't leave me. I wouldn't let her leave me. She's mine and she will never leave me. I spat in anger as my temper was losing. My voice started to get louder, clearly warning him to not push my buttons. And why can't she? Why you want her? Huh? Why can't you let her go? Why are you using her for your own satisfaction? Shut the fuck up, Andrew. I am not using her. Then why are you keeping her still? Why can't you just let her go? I will never let her go. Why? Why can't you let her go? Because I fucking love her. Both of our breathing was unstable. I didn't even notice where my anger took me, and I said something which I thought I would never be able to say again. I love her. I love Anastasia. I was thinking about my words till I felt a pat on my shoulder. Heaving my head up, I looked at smiling Andrew, who was looking satisfied. See. Sometimes we don't realize our feelings till we realized our fear. You feared to lose her, and that fear made you realize your heart's true feelings. Tell her before it's too late. Good luck, he said, winking at me and walking out of the room. Unexpectedly, a wide smile appeared on my lips, realizing the truth of my heart. That was the time I realized my heart. I love her. I love her so much. Shit, Darian, how can I be this blind? Just because of my fear to fall in love again, I was too coward to witness that I already had fallen for her a long time ago. It wasn't lust or attraction when I wanted to have her. It was love. I wanted to make her mine. I wanted to claim her wholly because I love her. I loved her from the day I took her the first time. When I claimed her everything. But I was too afraid to accept it. Chuckling at my stupidity, I laughed out. I can't believe I was so stupid. All this time her ignorance was hurting me because I love her. I missed her because I love her and can't stand her away from me. Because I fucking love her. Don't worry, Anna. Today I will make it up to you. I will tell you. I will show you how much I love you. Smiling at the picture, I placed a kiss on it. Don't worry, love, I will endure every punishment given by you for being this late, but I promise I will show you, my love. I will treat you the way an angel like you deserves to be treated. I was about to walk out of the room so I could go to our house, but stopped when my phone started to ring. Hello, Mom. I was about to dash my words cut down when I heard her panicked voice. Son. Anastasia. My heartbeat got fast in hearing Anna's name. What happened, Mom? What happened to Anna? Is she all right? No, son. Her water broke. I am in the hospital, they took her inside. I am scared, Darian, they are saying her condition is not good. She said, crying while my body started to tremble. But it's just a 7th month. How? Okay, relax, Mom. Which hospital? I am coming. Yeah, okay, I am coming. I instantly ran towards the car, starting the engine with my trembling hands. Relax, Darian. Nothing will happen to my Anna. Please be safe, love. Mom. Where is Anna? Darian came running to the hospital after hearing about her being in labor. She's still inside. They said her condition is not stable. They have to do the operation. Darian's eyes widened hearing his mother's words. Operation delivery is not really a rare thing. Nowadays many children's delivered by operation, but Darian had no experience in these things, that's why he was scared for his wife. Just why? Why now? Just when he decided to accept his true feelings. Accept the fact that he loves his wife. All this has to happen. He was busy questioning himself. His body was slightly trembling in fear. Darian tried to convince himself, he tried to tell himself that nothing will happen to his wife. She will be all right. I know my Anna P promised me she will and never leave me. He mumbled to himself, nodding his head, convincing himself that everything will be all right. Emily came running, followed by Andrew, who patted Darian's shoulder. Emily's tears started to fall down, making everyone confused as she was crying, covering her lips. Baby. Don't cry, nothing will happen to our Anastasia. Relax, Andrew cooed at Emily's side, hugging her, but she shook her head. Nothing will be all right. Nothing. She whispered, crying even harder, scaring Darian, who stood in front of her with a questionable frown. Emily, why are you crying like this? Stop crying, nothing will happen to my wife. It's just an operation deliver. Nothing is serious. He said while his body was still shaking a little, impacting on his voice. Don't tell me she still didn't tell you anything. Emily questioned him, meeting his worried eyes with her teary ones. Emily let out a huge sigh in disbelief, thinking that Anastasia still didn't tell him anything. Before Emily could continue her words, the doctor came out of the operation room, removing her mask with stressed expressions. "Did you people knew about the patient's condition?" Darian frowned at the doctor. Before he could reply to her, Emily said yes to her. "I knew about her condition. And you can proceed with the operation. I have patient's confirmation. I already had submitted it in the reception. Her signature is on the confirmation note." Doctor, without saying anything further, went inside the operation theater. Darian ruffled his hair, turning to Emily. "What the fuck is happening, Emily? What are you saying? What confirmation? Please tell me I am going crazy." Darian questioned her desperately as he was losing his patience. "I thought Anastasia will tell you one day, but I never thought she will take this kind of risk." No one said anything, just stared at her. "When she came to know about her pregnancy, I did another test on her to ensure hers and child's health. But the test came out not like I expected to be." Looking up at Darian, whose eyes were now started to moisten when he started to realize what was happening, but still he didn't want to accept it. Either Anastasia or her child. Only one of them can be saved. Darian stumbled back on his feet in shock while his tears started to embrace his cheeks. Mrs. Black gasped out, covering her lips. Anastasia's mother shook her head, tearing up. Andrew also gasped out in shock. Remember, Auntie Anastasia had an accident when she was only 10 years old. Anastasia's mother nodded her head, not able to find her own voice after what she heard. That accident had an impact on her abdomen. Her chances to be a mother was extremely low, that's why it took her so long to be pregnant. But there were only two options for her. First, to abort the child and save her life. Or give up on her life and save the child. If she would have aborted the child, the chances of her be pregnant again must have become zero. Sniffing, Emily stared at numb Darian with a small smile. "She loves you so much, Darian. Her love, I can't even compete with it. She decided to give you the reason for your happiness. She knew you wanted your own child. And she, being a most humble girl, she felt horrible even thinking of aborting her own child. She said she doesn't want to be a murderer. So she decided to give up on her life. And give you and her child a new reason to live." Darian stumbled back, falling on his knees, shaking his head repeatedly. Andrew's tears also started to stream down, covering his lips in order to stop his sobs. Anastasia's mother, after hearing Emily's words, blacked out. Mrs. Black was crying as well, but still helped Anastasia's mother and took her to another room. "And no. My Anna can't do this. How can she even think like that? She's my happiness. No, no, no." He cried out furiously, punching the floor, making Andrew hug him. But Darian didn't stop and started to slap himself here and there, crying out in agony. "How can she do this to me? I can't live without her, Andrew. I can't. She can't leave me like this." Pushing Andrew away, he stood up, nodding his head like a crazy man. I know my Anastasia will never leave me. She promised me. She will never leave me. Stop crying. I said stop fucking crying." He yelled at Andrew and Emily, who were crying, seeing him behaving like an insane person. He roughly wiped his tears and kept on mumbling to himself that nothing will happen to his Anastasia. Soon the door was opened and the doctor came out. Darian ran towards the doctor. "Relax, Mr. Black. Congratulations, sir, your wife gave a birth to a healthy boy." "But..." The doctor sighed heavily, snatching a smile from Darian, who smiled happily hearing about his son. "Your wife's condition is extremely critical, sir. She's still under the observation. You can meet her after she will be awake. But Mr. Black, let me be honest with you. The chances of your wife's survival are almost none. Just pray for her." Saying that, she walked away from there. Darian fell on the chair as the tears which he wiped away a while ago again started to stream down. How can he be this irresponsible? This much oblivious about his wife's condition. She was looking so pale and weak in the past days, and because of his fear of falling for her he didn't even try to ask her. He pulled his hair ruffling, bursting out in tears. After some time Anastasia was awake. Her condition was still critical. Her breathing was extremely low. Even the oxygen mask wasn't helping her. She only had a single glance at her newly born son. And that was enough for her. At least before dying she had seen her child. Her eyes were half open. She knew she couldn't be saved, and she already had accepted her fate. Her almost closed eyes met with Darian's trembling figure, who was now walking towards her half-dead body. Her tears were continuously falling down. Both of their eyes were bloodshot. Placing his both palms on her cheeks, he finally said those words which she craved to hear for so long. "I love you. I love you so much, Anna." Anastasia stared at him, curving her lips into a small smile. Finally today she heard what she always wanted to hear from his lips. He finally gave her an answer to her unanswered love. "Please don't leave me. Why, you promised me. Remember, you promised you will never leave me. Please, I beg you. Please. I will die without you. Please, I love you. I love you so much. Please don't leave me." He begged her, whispering near her ear, placing his forehead on hers, crying helplessly. Breathing heavily, Anastasia removed the mask using her weak and trembling hand. "Take care of forc child." She mumbled with difficulty, breathing out in every sentence. Her heartbeat started to get lower. While Darian shook his head, realizing what she was trying to say. She was bidding her goodbye. "Please don't leave me. I promise I will treat you better. If you want, I am ready to even kneel down in front of everyone and will ask for your forgiveness. I am ready for every punishment, but not this. Please don't go. Please, I beg you. I love you. I love you, Anna. We both love each other, so stay with me, please. Don't leave me like this." He begged her, kissing her hands repeatedly. She tried to hold his cheek, but her hand fell on her chest, having no strength in it to even hold him. She tried to say the last words, but before she could complete them her breathing got heavier. Her heartbeat became slower. Darian instantly called the doctor, seeing his wife's condition. "Please do something. Save her. Please. Save her, I can't lose her." Nurse forced him to get out of the room. Andrew tried to relax him, but his cries became louder. Finally, after a few minutes, the doctor came out with sad eyes. "I am sorry, Mr. Black. But your wife is now in a coma." Hearing doctor's words, Darian fell on his knees, crying his eyes out. He was numb and broken. Andrew closed his eyes, letting the tears fall down. He always considered Anna as his sister. Mrs. Black also sat down on the chair beside Emily, who was crying hysterically. This moment was supposed to be the happiest moment for Darian. He was a father now, but he failed in being a good husband. His son was here, but his wife, which he just realized how much he loves her, left him for God knows how long. "Mr. Black, please don't be hopeless, you should be happy. Your wife is one of the luckiest people." Everyone turned to the doctor, but Darian was still motionless. This is very rare in these types of cases. Either the patient ends up dying or simply both child and mother got saved, but in your wife's case, her condition was extremely severe, but still, she's alive. I still can't give you any hope, but I can only tell you to pray, because no one can predict for how long she's going to be in a coma. Saying that, she walked away, leaving all of them in pain and sadness. Everyone was crying because Anastasia was the most humble girl. Everyone respected and loved her because of her beautiful, selfless attitude. Darian stood up and walked towards her room with his wobbly legs. IVs were attached to her body and hands. An oxygen mask was on her mouth. Her skin was paled. Sitting beside her, he gently placed his head on the cushion near her face. His lips were touching her cheek as he started to speak with his broken voice. You love sea cooking. Your favorite color is blue. Seeing the one you love happy makes you happy. You never mentioned why your wish. Your favorite food, grilled steak. You always wanted to visit Sydney. You want to see why your loved ones happy no matter in order see them happy whatever you have to do. Why you will never hesitate. He completed his words, letting out more tears as he answered her questions she asked him that day. Yes, Darian knew everything about Anastasia. He always had taken her liking and disliking towards things in check. He knew many things about her even before the marriage, but he never showed it. That day he had answers to her every question. But he was confused and didn't know what to do or say. So he simply stayed quiet. But now he regrets it. He regrets not telling her. Not confessing to her that he knew everything. He had given her full attention even though he never showed it, but he still was known to her liking and disliking. I love you, Anastasia. I know I am late. I know I deserve the worst punishment. But please don't do this to yourself. Punish me, not yourself. Please wake up. Because this punishment is too hard. He mumbled, kissing her cheek and caressing her head. His heart started beating faster, witnessing a tear escaping her eyes. He was stunned to see a drop of water rolling down her cheekbone. A small smile appeared on his lips when he realized she can hear him. He gently kissed her tear, wiping it away. Don't worry, love. I will do anything in my hands. I will bring you back. I will wait for you. No matter how long it's going to take, I will wait. I promise I will be a good father. Please wake up fast. Whispering those words, he wiped his tears away and made a promise to himself. He promised himself to wait for her. To do everything in his hands and will do anything to bring her back. Because he knew, he and his child want her. They can't live without her. 8 months later. It's been 8 months when I last heard that beautiful melody-like voice. When I saw those beautiful hazel orbs. When I witnessed that angelic smile. I missed her. I miss everything about her. She was still in a coma, but I didn't lose hope. I am still trying and will keep on trying. I wouldn't lose hope no matter how long it will take for her to wake up. I will wait. My son was now for 8 months. His face structure and looks are just like me except for his eyes. He got his mother's hazel eyes, not my dark ones. He will be a real heartthrob after growing up. I have to admit he has extreme anger issues. He doesn't cry much, but instead, if he doesn't want something, he threw things away. Even my mom seems scared of him. He's gonna scare people a lot, and I can sense it. But what can I do? He's extremely cute, and of course our son. These 8 months I took our son's care with everything I can do. I couldn't be a good husband, but I want to be a good father. Ava, my ex-fiancée, also visited Anna 2 times. I finally decided to let my past go and have a peaceful relationship with her. We are not really like friends, but you can say we agreed to be acquaintance. After all, her father was my father's good friend. My father died when I was 18 years old in an accident. I took the responsibility of the company and also studied at the same time. It was a hard time, but eventually, I got used to it. Every day I went to visit Anna and took our son Nicholas with me. Yes, his name Nicholas Black. He wasn't named by me, but by my love Anastasia. I still remember one night when she was hugging me before sleeping. She thought I was sleeping and kept on talking to me, telling me about how she wants to raise her children. That time she told me if we had a son we will name him Nicholas, and if we had a daughter we will name her Claire. I love these names. She also told me that she used to read stories and these names were her favorite. That's why I named our son what her mother wanted to name him. Walking inside her hospital room, I placed the flowers on the side table and brought Nicholas closer to Anna. Look. Love. Nick has grown up a lot, he also can sit up on his own now. I am sure soon he will be able to walk as well. Kissing my sleeping son's forehead, I gently laid him in the stroller and sat down beside Anna. I was in my office attire. Yes, I always took Nicholas with me to the company because I don't want to leave him for even a second. Caressing her head, I kissed her cheek multiple times. Baby, we really need you. I really miss you. You know Nick has anger issues like me. But he's also very hygiene psycho like you. Chuckling out, I remembered how Nick hates whenever he's dirty just like his mother. She also hates seeing messy place, especially mess in her favorite place, kitchen. But soon my cries died down as I wiped my tears away, smiling at her unconscious figure. I kissed her forehead. Please wake up, baby. Don't make me wait this much. I miss seeing your eyes. I miss you so badly. Just wake up. I love you, my Anna. Whispering those words, I again kissed her forehead and took Nicholas to go back to my office, but suddenly I heard beeping sound from her heart detector machine. Even her breathing started to get heavy. I instantly yelled for the doctor. My tears started to fall down. I was kinda relieved that even in this loud atmosphere Nick was still asleep. Please, God, don't let anything happen to my Anna. I was pacing here and there, rubbing my hands. I wiped my tears away, consoling myself that everything will be all right. Finally, the doctor came out and stared at me, forming a small smile on her lips. Congratulations, Mr. Black. Your wife is out of coma. She's awake. Staring at her, Darian was sitting beside her bed while she was still looking so weak. Her one hand was in his hold as he kept on kissing it. I missed you. I missed so much, love. He said while kept on kissing her hand. She said nothing, just weakly smiled at him. Placing his hand on her cheek, he caressed it before staring in her tired hazel orbs with his teary dark ones. Anastasia gathered her strength and extended her hand in order to wipe away the tear that was escaped his eye. Darian closed his eyes, feeling her soft touch after waiting for so long. He felt these 8 months like an eternity. Placing his forehead on hers. I love you, Anna. He whispered near her lips, but she only smiled at him. He didn't push her to reply to him, and then a wide smile appeared on his lips. Standing up, he walked towards his sleeping son and gently carried him towards Anastasia. Our son Nicholas Black. Anastasia looked at him surprised, because she always wanted to name her son with that name. But soon her frown turned into a wide smile with teary eyes when Darian laid Nicholas beside her. She wrapped her hand on his tummy and placed numerous kisses all over his face. Darian also smiled and wrapped his arm around Anastasia's waist before placing his forehead on hers. They were looking complete. Their family was complete. Darian never felt this happy and joyful before. He couldn't wait to see his family laughing together. He knew Anastasia still needed time, and he was ready to give her as much as time she wants in order to accept the fact that he started loving her and she's still alive. After some time, Darian placed Nicholas in the stroller and sat beside Anastasia, who was now fast asleep as the doctor gave her medicines. He had no idea for how long he stared at her sleeping figure that he himself ended up sleeping while sitting on the stool and placing his head on her bed. He felt something soft in her hair, like someone's fingers caressing his hair. The touch was really familiar to him. Unconsciously, he moved closer to the touch and whined like a baby when the fingers stopped brushing his hair. Opening his eyes, he met with smiling Anastasia. Instantly jolting up, he let out a groan, hearing a crack from his neck. His neck went numb as he was sleeping all night on it. But soon his groan fades away, seeing Anastasia's worried expressions. He smiled at her and kissed her forehead. Before he could say something, he heard Nicholas crying. Instantly running towards him, he picked him up. Then he realized he needed milk. Darian brought his feeder with him, so he pulled the bottle out of his bag and started feeding him. It was winter, that's why the chances of milk expiring were less. He was humming and strolling here and there while feeding Nicholas. On the other hand, Anastasia was witnessing everything. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Darian being so careful and loving, she felt tears in her eyes, finally accepting that her decision of giving birth to Nicholas wasn't wrong. With that, 1 week went by and doctors gave Anastasia permission that she can go home. This week was hectic for Darian. He was extremely busy with Anastasia and Nicholas that he didn't even go to his company. And after dropping Anastasia to his house in the care of his mother, he finally went to his office and was stunned to see so much pending work. After all, he's the CEO of the company. And with that, month went by. Anastasia started to walk properly. Her strength started to come back, and she also started to take care of Nicholas. Darian felt relieved that his work has become lesser. But his body was still not relaxed. He always confessed his love to Anastasia, but she never replied to him. She only smiled at him, which made him sad, but he was still ready to wait for her to be ready. This time he was the one loving her unconditionally. He wasn't forcing her to do something which she doesn't want to. He was showering his care and love on her without asking anything in return. Standing in front of the mirror, he wiped the fog from it as he just took a warm bath. Nicholas was fast asleep in his room and Anastasia was making coffee for him. Darian smiled at the mirror, remembering how he used to look in this same mirror with hatred towards himself. He still remembered how he used to tear up and cursed himself whenever, after having sex with Anastasia, he always left her alone and went to the bathroom, but he never felt any kind of relaxation. Instead, he used to feel worst. He used to cry and cursed himself under the shower when he heard her walking out of the room. He always wanted to stop himself from touching her, but he just couldn't help it. But after having her, he was afraid to give her any hope, so he always left her alone, but he never felt in peace after leaving her. If Anastasia used to tear upon his cruel act of leaving her, he also used to hate himself for letting her feel that how worthless she is, when the truth is, for him she's the most precious gem and he's a worthless stone who doesn't deserve her. But now, smiling at the mirror, he understood why he used to feel so bad. Why he used to feel like hating himself when he used to left her alone. Wearing his bathrobe, he walked out of the room and found Anastasia on the bed and cup of coffee beside her. She was so much busy in her thoughts that she didn't even notice him coming closer to her. She got startled when he held her hand. "God, you scared me. What are you doing? You will catch cold, go and wear something warm," she said, pushing him, but he instead pulled her closer. "What happened, love? Tell me. From the day you woke up, you're always in deep thoughts. Share with me. I am here for you. You know how much I love you, right?" She looked down, but he forced her to look at him. Her teary eyes met his, making him instantly cooed at her. He places his both palm on her cheeks, caressing it softly. I was so scared, Darian," she said, crying harder. He instantly pulled her in his embrace. She wrapped her arms around his torso and pressed her head on his bare chest. "I thought I will never be able to meet you or our son. It scares me so much, Darian. I am so scared of what if I had die." "Don't, Anna. Never even think of spitting that word out. Nothing will happen to you. You are with me and our son. So never even think of that ever again." He interrupted her and kissed her forehead before stating calmly. Pulling away, he wiped her tears and smiled at her. "My crybaby. I know I admitted my feelings too late. But I swear I will treat you the way you deserve to be treated. I will give you the whole world, I promise. I love you so much." She smiled at him, feeling so grateful that finally she was hearing those words from his lips. But soon her smile faded away. "But I can't be a mother again. He placed a finger on her lips, shushing her up. "We have our son, Anna. And if we wanted to have more child, we can adopt a one. But what's more important is you. I can't afford to lose you. I and Nick can't even think of living without you. I love you so much." Anastasia's tears again started to fall down as Darian chuckled and kept on wiping them away. But then he got frozen when he heard her next words. "I love you too." He stared at her for some seconds before smashing his lips on hers. Anastasia was surprised but didn't stop him. She gently placed her hands on his shoulders and softly kissed him back. Wrapping his arm around her waist, he pulled her closer and kissed her with full of love and affection. That time they didn't stop and let their bodies melt away. That night Darian made love to Anastasia for the first time. That time Anastasia felt his love and affection in his doings. He held her gently and had her with full of care, showing how much he loves her. That time he finally answered her unconditional love with his acts. Anastasia steadily unfolded her hazel orbs, heaving out a deep breath. Her eyes instantly narrowed as she smiled happily, witnessing herself in her husband's arms. He was sleeping while their bare bodies were pressed against each other. He was hugging her so tightly, like he was afraid of letting her go. Last night Anastasia felt so different. She never in these 3 years felt this much love and affection by this man. He held her with so much care that she wasn't sure if it was her same cold husband. For the first time, he made love to her. He kissed her every inch with so much love. He had her but with so much care, like he was too much afraid of hurting her. And now, seeing him still holding her near him, she finally accepted the fact that her husband indeed loves her. She tried to remove his arms so she could take a shower. Last night Darian didn't let her to take shower as he wanted to hold her. But right now she was in a huge need of a shower. Anastasia was always a crazy hygienic, that's why she was feeling disgusted that after making love they didn't wash their bodies. But as soon as Darian felt her moving, he again pulled her closer by tightly holding her waist. He finally unfolded his dark orbs and looked at her with a sleepy glare. "Where do you think you're going?" "Love," he said in his deep raspy morning voice before burying his face in her crook. Their chest got pressed against each other, but Anastasia gave him a push. "Darian, you know I hate it when I don't take a shower. You didn't let me take one at night, now please leave me. I am feeling really uncomfortable." He whined, tightly holding her in his arms. But then Anastasia harshly pulled his hair, making him groan. She glared at him, making him retreat his arms. She tried to jump off the bed but got startled when Darian pulled her by her waist and picked her up as a bridal style, making her hold his shoulders. "What are you doing?" He didn't glance at her and entered the bathroom. "You said you want to take a shower, then let's take one." But he placed her on the counter and trapped her between his arms, smirking at her suspicious face. "Together," he whispered seductively. But before Anastasia could protest, he instantly picked her up and stood under the shower, opening the tap. She gasped out when the cold water hit her warm skin. He turned the water level to warm and slowly the water became better. He gently put her on her feet and wrapped his arms around her waist, hugging her. She let out a chuckle at his actions. He wasn't leaving her for even a second. Suddenly a gasp left from her lips as his lips landed on her wet shoulder. She placed her hand on the glass wall, breathing heavily. Darian. Don't do this, I have to check on Nick. Even after trying to resist, she was letting out soft moans while his lips kept on roaming on her shoulder to her collarbone. His marks were printed on her body as last night he took his full time on claiming her body with his love. Instead of stopping, he grabbed her hips and pulled her up, making her wrap her legs around his waist. He pinned her on the wall while his lips started to go down to her chest, sucking on her bosoms. "Don't worry, baby. I called Mom last night, she's taking care of our son." He mumbled, kissing her cleavage, earning more moans from her. Her words got interrupted when his free hand went to her womanhood, making her throw her head back because of the sensation. "Not buts, love." After completing his words, he earned a huge moan from her when he entered his 2 fingers in her, thrusting them right away. She tried to speak, but all her efforts got swallowed by his lips on hers. She wrapped her arms around his neck and started to kiss him back. He kissed her roughly while pumping his fingers, making her moan out and kiss. After a while, she came on his fingers, breathing heavily. He held her waist tightly while kissing her neck. He whispered, "I love you, Anna." With that, he slammed himself in her with one thrust, making her almost scream out, but he again kissed her hard, swallowing her yelps and moans. He moved from the glass wall and slammed her on the counter before fastening his pace. She dug her nails in his shoulders, throwing her head back while moaning his name out. Anna. I love you so fucking much. He groaned in pleasure while slamming himself in her with deep and hard thirst. His lips didn't stop as well and kept on roaming on her shoulder and neck. Anastasia wasn't in her senses. His hard thrusts and the pool of pleasure in her veins didn't let her to say anything or even reply to him. His words of confession flared up her insides. He kept on moaning her name while deepening his thrust, making her to lose her mind completely. Because of the power of his thrust, she harshly slammed her lips on his, kissing him roughly, which Darian replied with the same intensity but didn't stop thrusting inside her. After a few rough and deep thrusts, they both came together. Darian's one hand was placed on the mirror while other was holding her waist. His face was buried in her neck and Anastasia's was on his shoulder. They both were breathing crazily after their rough lovemaking. I love you, baby. He mumbled while pulling away from her neck and making eye contact with her hazel orbs. I love you too, Darian. He smiled happily, pecking her lips. He picked her up and went to the shower, and this time they had a warm shower without doing anything except hugging each other. 3 years later. Anastasia was making a breakfast when she was pulled in a hug. Large arms were wrapped around her waist and face was buried in her neck. Darian, how many times I have to tell you to not do this kind of things when we are outside of the bedroom? She said, forcefully removing his arms while he pouted with a sulking face. Don't give me that face. I don't want Nick to see something like this. Now go and change first. Look at you, just wake up and came outside like this. You're disgusting. Go and wash yourself first. She strictly scolded him, making his pout deeper as he whined like a child. But baby. Nick is sleeping, he's not here. Mama. 4 years old Nicholas came in the kitchen towards his mother. Anastasia smiled at Nicholas while spreading her arms and picking him up. Darian glared at his own son for having his wife's attention. But soon his fake glare turned into a genuine smile when Nick spread his arms for Darian to pick him up, which he instantly did. Dad, what happened? You're looking sad, Nick said, staring at his father with concerned eyes while Darian smirked at Anastasia, making her roll her eyes as she knew what he was going to do. Your mama didn't kiss me. The good morning. I am sad, Darian said, childishly pouting at his son, earning a disgusted face from Anastasia, who earned a cute glare from his son. Mama, how could you? Look, Dad is so sad. Come on, kiss him. He said strictly, making Darian grin in victory while Anastasia shook her head at his childish behavior of using his own son. She knew Nicholas is extremely a short-tempered brat and angrier than his father, so not wanting to hear him ranting, she gently leaned towards Darian and kissed his cheek. You're so lame. She whispered in his ear, making him chuckle. Only for your love. He whispered back, winking at her, making her giggle. Then they heard a cry and witnessed Mrs. Black bringing their 1-year-old daughter to the kitchen. Ah, my daughter is awake, Darian said, putting Nicholas on his feet and carrying his daughter in his arms. Give Claire to me. She must be hungry, Anastasia said, picking Claire's milk bottle and feeding her. While Darian again picked Nick up, who was staring at his sister with bright eyes. Claire wasn't Anastasia and Darian's daughter. They adopted her from an orphanage. Her mother died giving birth to Claire. Her father blamed her for his wife's death and refused to accept her. So he disowned her and gave Darian and Anastasia every parental right. Anastasia and Darian always thought of Claire as their own daughter. Even Nicholas was happy with her being his sister. Darian wrapped his arm around Anastasia's shoulder and kissed her forehead while staring at Claire, who was now looking at Anastasia with her beautiful emerald eyes while drinking her milk. I am so happy for us being a complete family. We don't need anything else when we have each other. I love you all so much. Darian mumbled, kissing Nicola's forehead, earning a giggle from him. He kissed Claire's forehead as well, making her doe eyes turn to him as she stared at him with curious eyes. Anastasia smiled at Darian and pecked his cheek before leaning to his chest. Mrs. Black didn't disturb their family time and silently left the kitchen with a happy smile on her face. Their family was complete and they were happily living their life. Their trials and obstacles, of course, wouldn't stop, but they knew they will pass everything together. They finally had a happy ending. Living their life happily ever after. Hope you liked this short series. Do like and subscribe to the channel. Do leave a review to share your thoughts.